Hi there, and welcome to Life Stories in Conversation, episode 4. I'm here with my colleague Darren Stacey, head of sales and customer operations. Darren, good to see you at Crowthorne. What a lovely community it is.
Crowthorne's a fabulous community, Ollie. We've got 32 apartments. Most of them are sold, but a good proportion are rented, which is really nice to see. Within the development, we've got an owner's lounge, which leads out onto lovely terrace. We've got gardens around as well for owners and tenants to enjoy. There's also a live host on site and a guest suite. But rental is what we're here to talk about today. So it's a growing market.
There's a good proportion of tenants who are in this community, as well as our communities across the country. Obviously, we rolled out rental in 2020, March 2020.
We did.
Which is when I started at the business. You were here a little bit before, and we were running rental before. How did it start?
It was very much a reaction to the customer demands, really. We felt that our customers, whilst historically a lot of people purchased a retirement home, they wanted the option of a bit more flexibility. So that's where we started to come up with the rental idea and started to test that. And then in March 2020, as you say, Ollie, we brought you on board with your experience and knowledge of rental and started to grow and develop the business.
And the uptake's been fantastic. Between 40 and 50% of our reservations last year were tenants renting.
They were.
What, from your experience, has been the main reason people have chosen that option as opposed to purchase?
I think it's the choices that somebody has and the options. So whilst I think that the old adage, an Englishman's home is his castle, will still ring true, I think the growing response to renting a retirement home is going to grow in the future. And it just gives people that choice or that option to keep the family home and use it as that summer getaway for the family, or sell the family home and use the equity that has been built up in there over the years. And whilst you're renting, you can then enjoy that bucket shop list of holiday experiences. You might want to go on a cruise or anything, because these apartments are ideal for lock up and leave.
I think what's really important is that word that you mentioned is choices. So what's really interesting with our offering is we don't segregate between tenants and owners as to what can be purchased and what can be rented.
Not at all.
What's really important is our customers want to live in this community. They want to live in a home like this, and they say, this is the one for me. And then how they transact with us, whether that be through renting or home ownership, is really on their terms. And we make sure that that's possible for them.
Yeah.
And you can line all of our tenants up and all of our owners, and they come from the same sort of background, and they all have similar interests, and it's just their own personal decision whether they decide to own or to rent.
Yeah, you're quite right. They come in and see us, early inquiry, and they have a look at the apartments, and there's no class structure. Somebody looking at purchasing one of the homes can either, when they walk in through the door, they can either purchase or they can rent. There is no class structure. One of the other aspects that we offer as well, which is really important, is rent to buy. I've had particular feedback from, particularly from family, from the sons and the daughters, when they've gone down that route, expressing, I suppose, their pleasure really, that they've been able to support their mum or their dad in moving from where they live currently into a retirement home, and how easy it is for their parents to make that transition, whilst then being able to sell the family home later down the line, knowing that their mum and dad are nice and comfortable and relaxed, enjoying their new lifestyle.
Because of course the timescales are a lot less.
They are. On average, it tends to be about 4 weeks. As soon as we get the information in, because of course somebody is renting, Ollie, so basic information that we're really looking for is proof of ID, proof of address, and proof of income and savings. So once we've got that easy information, which everybody has, we can then begin the setting up the rental agreement, And as soon as that's done, somebody can then move in and enjoy the lifestyle.
Compared to possibly or definitely a longer conveyancing process on a purchase.
Most definitely. If you're a cash buyer, then it could be 3 months. But if you've got a property to sell, then you could be, with all the pitfalls that we know about that are in selling and purchasing properties in this country, it could be 6 months, it could be longer. So rental is definitely a way to go. And as I say, Rent to Buy, some of the family have expressed directly to me that they've been really pleased about that offering that we make available to them.
And you've obviously been in retirement for over 2 decades.
Thank you.
And not retired yet.
No.
Do you have you seen a seismic shift? Is this something that people are now latching onto, or has it existed for a while within the industry?
Most definitely, it is a seismic shift. I think it's I think the industry's been waiting for it, really, or our customers have been waiting for it. What I hope to see, and which I'm sure will happen, is that rental will become, an ever increasing popularity for how somebody lives in one of the homes here. I think that demand over the last few years has built and increased.
Do you ever see the industry becoming 100% rental?
I don't think so. I think it will still, certainly in the short term at the moment, as I say, Englishman's home has always been his castle. There will be people that will want to purchase. They like outright ownership. But as we've been talking about today, having that rental option, maybe some people can't afford to purchase. So therefore, renting does fit a lot of people's criteria when they're looking for somewhere to enjoy their later life.
I think it's great that the vast majority of our communities have got lounges in, and people can make new friendships, and meet like-minded people. It doesn't matter whether they're tenants or owners. Everyone mixes together. I think it's fantastic.
One of the things quite interesting, many people, once they've purchased or rented one of our homes, have said, and you say, Ollie, I've been in this industry for many years, but one of the things that people say quite a lot is they wish they'd done this years ago. When somebody owns or rents a home, they really do settle down, and they have a new lease of life.
I think it's great. Really good.
You said earlier on that March 2020 you joined us as a company. What key things do you see? Because you built up your career in the rental open market, and this market. Any differences that stand out for you?
It's interesting. So as you say, my background was originally estate agency on the rental side, and my perception of the retirement sector was very, very different, probably even until the first day I started at the company. What I think is very, very interesting is there isn't necessarily an option for someone who is, as we tend to cater for, over 60, to rent on the open market in the same way that other sectors are catered for.
Right.
If you're 20 or 30 and you're renting, if your landlord is a pain, for example, you've got options. You can move quite quickly. It's not a faff for you to move, and a lot of 20-somethings move annually or biannually. Yeah. For a 60-year-old who has lived in their property for 30, 40 years, to then move, it's very, very stressful. And I think that's what, as a company, we are all about, is reducing stress for that demographic.
Very much so.
So to have someone who you know is built to rent it, and who is set up to deal with any problems that a tenant has, I think is great, comparing to rolling the dice on the open market. There are build to rent providers that are set up in London for the open market, and they do very, very well. But for something with a rural setting, for example, here, us in the Crowthorne community, if you wanted to rent here and you were over 60, you would be up to renting from private landlords. And there are a lot of very, very good private landlords out there, but there are also landlords who aren't completely focused on renting the apartment. It's just something they do on the side, or someone who doesn't really care about their tenants, whereas we really, really do.
Well, of course, we own our buildings, and we also employ a life host who is an integral part of the communities here. and we take care and support and do the management as well.
Absolutely. And I think what the other important factor for us is that it's a tenant moves into their home. It's not something that they're renting for 6 months, a year, 2 years. We want a tenant to stay for as long as they're able to and as long as the community fits their needs.
And is that a difference that you see quite between somebody in their 20s, as you say, and somebody in retirement?
Definitely. So even the type of agreement that we offer gives the tenant more control than we have over how long that they live in their apartments, compared to an open market tenant who says, well, you've rented for a year, thank you very much for being our tenant, I'm going to do something different with the apartment now. With one of our homes, you can rent for as long as the development is right, and the community is right. So I think that's very, very different. I also think that we're about building a community as opposed to just filling a property. And that's a different way of looking at the problem entirely.
And of course, when somebody's renting one of our apartments, all of the responsibility of maintaining, so if one of the white goods broke down, for example, is us as the
it's our
management
responsibility.
company.
Happens rarely, but if there is an issue, we can solve it very, very quickly and ensure that tenants are looked after, and that's the most important thing. In the future, how do you see our rental offering going?
I think it's just set to grow, really. I don't think it will ever be 100%, but I think it will definitely. It's definitely got a place in the market. What I hope is that retirement living later in life, the whole market just grows, because I just think it's a fantastic way to live later life. And I would encourage, my grandparents or parents, that it frees up the time to devote to doing what you want to do, rather than having to maintain, a large house or large gardens. There are so many aspects to owning a bigger property, which can be quite cumbersome. Yet living here, you can go and play tennis, you can go and play golf or bowls, whichever. On a daily basis or a weekly basis.
No, absolutely. I think it's very exciting.
It is.
Long may it continue.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for listening to this episode of Life Stories in Conversation. Please stay tuned for future contribution from other members of our community, and please subscribe on YouTube and your podcast providers.